This is how Jason Belmonte saved bowling, how he rescued the sport from near extinction. Many out there will claim that two-handed bowling has ruined the game, but I want to put an alternative take to you, and that is that two-handed bowling, and specifically Jason Belmonte, have helped to save bowling. Two-handed bowling has changed the sport forever. There are good points to that, there are not so good points, but at the end of the day, that is the situation we have. It's easy to complain and say that two-handers have ruined bowling, but I always think you need to look at the other side of things and try and look at the positives. And that's exactly what I'm going to do in this video, where I discuss Belmonte's meteoric rise and how he's kept the sport from dying out fast. As I've said several times before on this channel, Oscar Palermo was the first bowler who brought the two-handed style to the PBA all the way back in 2004. He was also the first two-hander to win a major, the 2011 World Championship. However, Belmonte was starting to establish himself on tour, and just after Oscar's win, Belmonte won the Players' Championship. Oscar may have been the one to introduce two-handed bowling to the PBA, but Belmonte took it to a whole other level. So why exactly am I saying that Belmonte has helped to save bowling? Well, anytime you have a player that great who's breaking so many records that many thought were impossible, it's going to create headlines. The fact he's an international player too just adds to it all, and when he started to dominate the sport in the mid-2010s, it did create so much interest in bowling and the PBA. Most importantly, this directly translated to youth bowlers. Suddenly, bowlers everywhere wanted to bowl like Belmonte. He does make the two-handed style look very, very good indeed. A lot of two-handers can have an awkward style, but not Belmonte. He's very smooth and is naturally a player many two-handers look to take inspiration from. Even people who are not bowlers know about the two-handed style. Suddenly, these open players saw it and wanted to try it. The thing about two-handed bowling is that it's a much easier gateway into bowling than one-handed, because when somebody uses one hand, the hardest thing for them is trying to hook the ball, and that's exactly what they want. They want the big hook that the pros get. Anytime I'm down practicing, and there's an open player, they always ask the same thing. How do you hook the ball like that? How do you make it turn? That's what they want. But trying to do that one-handed takes a lot of time. With the two-handed style, suddenly it becomes relatively easy. You can get the ball to turn and you can get that speed. I always say it like this: two-handed bowling is easy to learn but very hard to master. One-handed bowling is hard to learn but a lot easier to master than two-handed. So what that means is it's a far easier gateway for young players, some of which who can't even hold the ball, to learn the game and get good quickly. It is a bit of a cheat code, if you like, but that's what has helped the game so much. You've had an explosion of interest from the young bowlers who want to be like Belmo, and then you have a much easier style to learn that means they improve, enjoy the game, and therefore stay in the game. I wonder how many two-handed bowlers that we have now who are young or even in their 20s that were inspired by Belmonte and then other two-handers as well, that would not be in the game if it wasn't for Jason Belmonte. I truly believe that youth bowling probably would have almost died out in many places if it wasn't for two-handed bowling. Of course, it's declined significantly all over the world, but two-handed bowling has become so popular that the majority of youth bowlers use that style. Now yes, you can complain about that, but what would you rather have? A solid youth scene with a lot of two-handers, or youth leagues closing and hardly any new talent coming through? You can't question the impact that Belmonte has had in that respect. It's like a snowball. You add in some of the other great two-handers that came, like Carl Troop, Anthony Simonson, and then the new young guns on the horizon in players like Ryan Barnes and Ethan Fure, and the snowball just gets larger and larger. The two-handed style has made the game more accessible, and Belmonte in particular has shone a light on professional bowling by becoming the all-time major winner He's given bowling something it needed. Every generation needs that special type of player. I just want to talk a little bit about the backlash that two-handers have and why you shouldn't be worried about two-handed bowlers from a competitive point of view. Like I said, these two-handers, let's call them league players or casual tournament players, they have reached a fairly good level and can score well on the right conditions. However, two-handed bowling is not some magic cheat code that's going to make you the best bowler in the world. What separates the good two-handers from the great is consistency and versatility. Belmonte isn't the best because he's two-handed. I mean, we look at the best player in the world right now, and it's clearly EJ Tackett, a one-hander. Belmonte is the best because he's the best. Like, it's that simple. The two-handed style, to me, only plays a small role because you can be a two-hander, you can be very good. Belmonte's style is such a good example of how great his physical approach is. And if you take that away, well, you're going to have a player who is not able to be consistent, not able to adapt. So the player matters. And I think that's a little bit of the illusion that some people see, that the two-handed bowlers that are coming through on the PBA are there just because they're two-handed. It's not. It's because they're very, very good at what they do. I see so many two-handers who are not consistent. So what happens is that when they're good, they are almost unbeatable. But when it's not their day, they're all over the place. Likewise, these players aren't always very versatile and can only play a couple of shots. Some rely almost exclusively on urethane. So at a certain level, if you're a one-hander, you can absolutely compete with them. I always think that the biggest letdown for two-handers can be their spare shooting. Yes, they can often strike enough at times to make up for it, but sparing can let them down. At the end of the day, when you're playing on tougher patterns, it comes down to the skill level. It's all about who figures out the lanes to find the best area to play and who can execute the best. Being a one-hander or two-hander really doesn't make a lot of difference, in my opinion. When you're talking about tournament settings where you're on a particularly tough shot, the way some people talk, they seem to think that two-handers are unbeatable because they can just fire it up with urethane with loads of revs. And yes, sometimes that's going to work and they're going to score, but there are other times where it won't work. And if they don't have the skills to adjust, they will be beaten. So I think a lot of this has to do with perception on the two-handed style. But let's go back to Belmonte. I think, to summarize all of this, whatever you think about him or two-handed bowling, he has revolutionized the game. He's got people excited about bowling. He's got the youth wanting to copy him, wanting to learn that two-handed style. He's inspired so many. He's given bowling the attention it needs and deserves. His career has helped to keep bowling alive. And if the two-handed revolution had not taken place, who knows what the game might look like now. There is just something about Belmonte's style. You know, forget the fact that he's won 15 majors. Forget the fact that he's carved out one of the best careers that we've seen. There is just something about him and his style that has captured people. And of course, a lot of that was timing. You know, he came to the PBA at a time when, aside from Oscu, it was basically him. He was leading the charge for the two-handers. And just look at what has happened in such a short space of time. This whole thing is no different to going back years and years and years ago to when you had players playing straight. And then suddenly you had some of the power players like the Mark Roths of the world who started to hook the ball a lot more than we'd ever seen. People said the same thing then. They didn't like the style. But it was a case of adapt or die. And that's the situation we're in. You know, you went on to urethane era in the 80s. Then you went to the reactive era, and the reactives took out a lot of the good players, and suddenly you had more power players that were able to create even more hook. And then we get into the 2000s. You think of players like Sean Rash and Tommy Jones, Chris Barnes. It was that kind of era just before the two-handed bowlers came that again knocked out some of the players that have been dominating before. So this is just how it has been throughout the history of bowling. Things change, new styles come in, and at the end of the day, you have to find a way to remain competitive, and there is always a way to be competitive. And what Jason Belmonte has done is to create a legacy and almost create what I would call a movement. He has inspired so many people to learn the game, and do you know what? That is not a bad thing. And so that will bring us to an end of this video. I would love to hear your thoughts on this. Let me know what you think about my take about Jason Belmonte saving bowling. Let me know in the comment section below, and if you have enjoyed what you've seen here today, I'd appreciate it very much if you would subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of my future videos. Well, that's going to do it from me for today, and as always, thank you bowling fans, and see you all next time.